Hello, Mrs. Baker. Just a side note before I start, I couldn't record on with a presentation. I'm not that great in technology yet, so I hope that you can. I hope you have the slides in front of you. If you don't have, I will be reading what's in front of me. I'll be starting from slide 6 until slide 9 from my PowerPoint presentation. So, okay, grade 10s. Let's welcome Mrs. Baker, who's going to be joining in our class just for a few minutes, where we continue on the subject of global warming. So, Mrs. Baker, so far we have done the aims of the lesson. We have spoken a bit about carbon footprint and what they can remember from what we said before in previous lessons. And we defined the concept global warming and what global warming is. So, slide 6, we're going to start with the issues with global warming. So, students, let's have a look at the next slide. Issues with global warming. The first point that you get there is ice from the glaciers melt, which makes sea levels rise. Why is that a problem? So, because of global warming, remember we said global warming is caused by pollution and it increases the temperatures of the earth. So when something gets warmer, if you put an ice block in the sun, it's going to start melting. So on Earth, on the coldest parts of Earth, there's big mountains of ice and they melt tons of water into the ocean, and these ocean levels start rising. Which means all the coastal towns will be flooded, or some parts of it will be totally disappear, or some, like say for instance the Maldives, which is a small little bunch of islands but very tiny in the middle of the Indian Ocean, will completely disappear over time. This is a big problem. So can anybody tell me, why is it a big problem? Yes, the tourism industry. Nobody will want to travel to these places. We'll get into that a little bit later, why they won't want to travel to these places. But yes, it's a problem. It's a problem for Earth with the waters rising, especially for coastal towns. And not just for tourism, but for the people who live in these coastal towns. All right, let's look at the next one. The next point. The climate of our world is changing because of global warming. So that means there's more snow falling sometimes, there's more flooding, there's more droughts, because the climate is just everywhere, because the Earth is not used to having these warmer temperatures, you know? So the climate is changing in all. And for us in the travel industry, this is a big problem. Why is this a big problem for the travel industry? When there's too much rain, or there's heavy weather, or there's too much snow when the snow was not expected. Well, first you can can anybody give me some ideas? Yes, true, flights can be cancelled. What else? Roads can be closed, tour buses cannot get through because there's a road closure, because a tree fell because of heavy winds, or because of too much raining or flooding. So this is a big problem. Global warming is a big impact on tourism. We'll get into that a little bit more, but I want you to understand the concept of global warming in the sense of tourism. You have to try and put these two together. Right, let's move on to our next slide. Now we're going to look at the causes of global warming. What makes, we all know now that pollution increases the temperature, and that is global warming. But what is the causes of this pollution? What is the causes of global warming? So there's two major ones that we're gonna look at. The first cause of global warming is greenhouse gases. So if you look at that picture, what can you see? What is that? Can anybody tell me? A factory, perfect. It's a factory. And do you think the smoke that comes out of that factory is smells like lavender and is pure oxygen? No, yes, it's not. It is ugly, it's dirty stuff, it's stuff that we do not want in our atmosphere, because inside that smoke is a lot of carbon dioxide, CO2. This is what we spoke about earlier, about the carbon dioxide, our carbon footprint on Earth, and that is what it is. It's not a good carbon footprint. that is what is making our Earth so much warmer. And there's many factories because people need to eat, people need to use paper, they need to build technology. We need factories to build all the stuff that all of these billions of people who live on Earth need to survive. So okay, let's look at the next slide. There you can see the picture, which is called, maybe you were taught about that in primary school. It's called the greenhouse effect. But let's see how the greenhouse effect and the greenhouse gases comes together when we're talking about global warming. So as you can see, the sun, if you look at the picture, the sun radiates warmth onto the Earth. It makes us warm so that none of us freezes to death, yeah? So it's good. We get all this warmth and energy from the sun. And then in normal circumstances, we have the atmosphere around, and the atmosphere allows some heat to stay inside so that the Earth can keep being warm enough for us to live. But it does, when Earth gets too hot, it can travel through the atmosphere and expand radiation, you know, to get the warmth out from Earth, so that the temperature doesn't get too hot. So this is where the problem from greenhouse gases comes. The greenhouse gases, these factories with all this smoke coming out from every part in every country, in every city, in every town, all these greenhouse gases forms a blanket around the atmosphere, blocking the way for the heat that's being radiated inside Earth and the atmosphere. It blocks it so that the warmth cannot get out of our atmosphere anymore. So that means we're sitting with a problem with a blanket that's around our atmosphere filled with all of this smoke and this greenhouse gases that cannot get away. And this is how Earth gets warmer and warmer every year by a little bit. And even a smallest change in the temperature of the Earth makes big nature impacts. But this you will learn at a later stage. Fine, okay, perfect. So you all understand what is going on here. You can see the picture of the greenhouse gases being trapped with the atmosphere and cannot get out. And we're just getting more smoke and smoke and smoke and getting warmer and warmer. Perfect, good. All right, let's look at our next slide. So the number 2 cause, and these two go actually hand in hand, and I will put them together for you in a minute. The number 2 cause of global warming is deforestation. So deforestation is what it means. It means deforestation. So what is a forest? Yes, there's trees, perfect, there's plants, it's a forest, there's nature. Okay, so let me first tell you this. A tree or a plant absorbs CO2, carbon dioxide, which is great because we produce carbon dioxide to live, and out of our cars and out of electricity and out of factories and out of our chimneys, carbon dioxide gets out, and the trees come and they're like, we'll save you, we'll absorb all of this carbon dioxide, and they can. But now what do we do as humans? We go and we cut off more trees to build more factories. And we cut down more trees to build more factories. So where the logic in that is, I don't know. But let's read the first point there. Plants are so important because they absorb the CO2 that is causing global warming. That is just what I explained to you. The second point, today the forests are getting fewer and fewer because of greedy people. These greedy people who wants to build shopping malls, another shopping mall just 2 kilometers down the road, new roads, new subways, new cities, new factories. All of these buildings that's coming up, they're killing nature, okay? Once a tree dies, so it falls down, they cut it down and it dies, or it's burned down, all the CO2, carbon dioxide that he absorbed to help us gets expelled back into Earth. So this is causing a big problem for us, right? Because now we're making factories, and we have trees that absorb it, but we kill the trees, and all the CO2 just gets expelled back into Earth, and we sit with a global warming issue of the Earth is just getting warmer and warmer and warmer. All right, let's look at our last slide for today, and that is how we bring it together with the tourism industry. So consequences of climate change to the tourism industry. Can someone just quickly on the top of their head think, what is the consequences of all of this? Of all these points that we were talking about, ice melting and climate change and season change, and how can this affect the tourism industry? This is what you are studying now. Oh yes, 100. I agree 100% with all of you. So, like we've said before, seaside villages might flood or disappear. Think, for instance, you want to book a holiday to Durban, and the next moment you hear, oh, but there's no beach in Durban anymore. The water crashes against all the business buildings. So you wanted to go because you wanted to lie on the beach and tan and drive a rickshaw and do all the Durban things, but you can't anymore. But now you can go and lie by the hotel pool, but you can't go to the beach. Will you go to Durban? No. So this influences the tourism industry, because people is not going to flock to Durban to come to Durban's most beautiful beaches anymore. Right, let's look at another one. Climate change affects seasons, which can bring too many rain or less rain. This is what we talked about as well. How does this influence? So seasons change. So say, for instance, you have people that every year in the early spring, Namaqualand has the most beautiful flowers that's blossoming. The reason why they're blossoming is because they get many rain before in winter, like before spring. So say, for instance, that year, because of what? Who can tell me? Because of seasonal changes, climate change. Because of that, there was not much rain in the winters, so the flowers doesn't look that great this year. Do you think people's going to travel all the way and go book a nice little Airbnb or a nice little hotel to go see the flowers when this year the flowers is not good? No. What does that mean? The Airbnb people doesn't get money. The restaurants doesn't get money. The whole economy suffers from this. Do you see how it makes, it's like a circle. Global warming will affect everybody at some point. Financially, economically, physically, medically. So let's look at another one. Governments are implementing more tax to help reduce greenhouse gases. So the government are trying to help in their ways to add more tax on certain things, which makes it, if you add tax onto something, you will think twice about buying a flight ticket, or because it costs more money. And people these days, they don't have money for more and more taxes, which is also a problem when it comes to the tourism industry, because people need to have money to spend on holidays to be a tourist. And then lastly, climate change will affect our nature, our wildlife. So South Africa is very rich in wildlife, and there is so many tourists overseas coming to South Africa to see our wildlife. Plant species, bird species. I can continue this. Just South Africa is beautiful in nature and in wildlife. Say, for instance, the rhino, it becomes extinct. Do you think people's gonna come? But they can't see the big five anymore. It's the big four now, or in 200 years, it's the big three. Do you think it's gonna be as nice as it is now? We can see the big five in one farm. No. And this is something that you need to keep in mind of as well. It's not just us humans that get impacted by global warming, it's the wildlife. And when the wildlife gets impacted, we as tourists and tourism tourist guides or touristic service providers, we get directly impacted. Right. And now we're going to say goodbye to Mrs. Becker. Thank you for joining us for these few slides. Now we're going to continue on to talking how we as tourists or how tourists and accommodation establishments can help to reduce our carbon footprint on Earth, to help the issue in global warming. And then lastly, I will give them an individual worksheet that they need to work out for me in 20 minutes and hand it back to me so that we can see if they understood what I was talking about today. Thank you so much. Goodbye.